All right, folks, it is Thursday evening, September 26, 2024, and we are just hours away from landfall of major Hurricane Helene. Yesterday when we spoke, we had talked about this being a possibility of rapid intensification getting underway and pushing Helene up to major status, and it did so earlier today. And today, at the recording of this video, it is a Category 4 storm, just about 65 to 70 miles south of the Florida coastline, building inland for landfall right around 11 o'clock Eastern time. So Helene has satisfied rapid intensification criteria. What is that? That's an increase in sustained winds by at least 35 miles per hour within a period of time of 24 hours. And we certainly did that today. In fact, we surpassed the criteria. Extreme impacts are already underway. We're talking storm surge values continuing to rise. Forecast from the Hurricane Center puts values possibly getting as high as 20 feet. In the Big Bend area of Florida, areas just to the east of the landfall location, we'll see those highest inundation amounts. And that historic storm surge, certainly historic, but also this will likely be the strongest storm to ever hit this part of the Florida coastline. Not the strongest storm to ever hit Florida, just this particular geographic location along the Florida panhandle. Impacts for the southeast U.S. also going to be wide scale and last for days in terms of power outages and downed trees, because this ginormous Windfield will be moving inland. So here's a loop over the last several hours of what is now major hurricane Category 4, Helene. At the latest update, 130 mile per hour winds. Now we are getting hourly updates from the Hurricane Center that started earlier this afternoon and will continue until well after it makes landfall later this evening. Gusts to 155 miles per hour. And it is moving quicker. It's been accelerating to the north at 23 miles per hour now, and pressure continues to fall. Again, as long as it's over water, which it's got a couple more hours over the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico, the Northeast Gulf, we may see a quick little burst of intensification right up until landfall, unfortunately. Here's a look at just how large the cloud shield is. It extends not only up into the Northeast Gulf, but really it covers almost the entire eastern seaboard, almost everywhere east of the Mississippi River. And this is that tropical fetch coming up and over and heading up into New England. It's not particularly bringing any gusty winds or anything like that far to the north, but it's just the overall cloud deck all associated with Helene well off to the south there. So Category 4 right now, even after moving inland, it doesn't immediately dissipate. It takes a little bit of time. It does dissipate rapidly, but not immediate. So by Friday, about 4 hours after landfall tonight, so by Friday morning, 2 a.m., we're still talking a Category 2 storm. By this point, with it moving probably 26 miles per hour to the north, it will have made it into southern Georgia. So we're talking a Cat 2 hurricane in South Georgia overnight tonight with a huge wind scale. I'm going to show you that Windfield. I'll show you that in a second. It continues accelerating to the north, decays down to a tropical depression and remnant low by 12 hours later, Friday afternoon. And then it runs into an upper level feature. You may have heard this getting thrown around a lot, the Fujiwara effect. Well, it's an upper level system that's actually going to pull it on in and absorb the energy from what is left of Helene and kind of stall it out and dissipate it right to the east of the Mississippi River in Tennessee and portions of Kentucky. So here's a look at the Windfield coming from the 8 o'clock advisory tonight. This huge lobe of tropical storm force winds extending out about 400 miles in diameter, maybe even a little bit larger than that. That's 39 mile per hour winds or greater. Right now, a good chunk of Florida is experiencing that at this time. Strongest of the winds already beginning to build onshore, 55 miles per hour considered damaging wind gusts. And then the hurricane force winds of at least 74 to 75 are closer to the center of Helene. Builds inland tonight, and by 11:30 or so, we've already got the strongest winds building into South Georgia. Northeastern, northwestern portions of Florida getting socked with heavy winds. And then look at the size of the wind field. It continues to grow even though after it makes landfall, it's gaining latitude and the wind field expands. Most of Georgia experiencing at least tropical storm wind gusts, and even most of South Carolina as well. Even Metro Atlanta could get in on some of the damaging wind gusts, maybe even hurricane force wind gusts as we get into early Friday morning. Here's a look at some of the reporting stations, some of the observation posts of wind gusts already achieved today. Nothing extraordinary, right? We're not seeing like 95, 100-mile-per-hour winds yet. But the strongest winds so far, 71 at St. Petersburg. And keep in mind, for pretty much all today, we've had onshore winds coming all up and over southwestern Florida and western Florida, and that's been creating storm surge issues there, especially out in Tampa Bay. A few buoys offshore have reported some higher wind gusts, 67-mile-per-hour wind gusts to the south of St. Petersburg there, and we're starting to get these tropical storm wind gusts almost everywhere in Florida right now. I want to bring to your attention again, we talked about this yesterday, the big impact here is the storm surge, especially in this portion of Florida, because we have the concave coastline, so it's curved inward, and that kind of channels the water in and creates higher storm surge values. So the forecast right now is for 15 to 20 feet just to the east of that storm track, and here is the median line of the most recent National Hurricane Center track. Again, several dozen miles still to the south of landfall, but it's blowing all onshore and is piling up that water. Looks like it's verified a little farther to the east than the forecast we're calling for yesterday. And you saw the Windfield, okay? Here's a look at the most recent power outage reports. This is as of 8 o'clock Thursday evening in Florida, already coming in with nearly 500,000 outages. I wouldn't doubt as we go through the rest of the evening after landfall and it moves up into the southeast that we see well over 1 million outages, could approach 2 million outages, majority of which being in Georgia, South Carolina, and Florida. But even as the remnants build inland, the Carolinas, North Carolina, and even Virginia could see a fair share of outages as well. Rainfall totals with it moving so quickly, we're not looking at, foot, 2 feet. We're not measuring the rainfall in feet, let's just say that, which is good. But regardless, 4 to 6 inches of rain in a short amount of time, certainly going to create some flash flooding. And that's also another big-time hazard here as you get into the metro Atlanta area. A lot of concrete. A lot of areas where poor drainage is, so that's going to be a problem in Atlanta by early tomorrow morning with the heaviest of the rain building on in there. Here's a look at all the active watches and warnings. In fact, there are no watches, so they've all been upgraded to warnings as the threat is now imminent. Hurricane warnings in all the pink here, orange everywhere else, the entire state of Georgia, entire state of South Carolina under these warnings at this moment. Helene is not the only storm out there. It is the brunt of our focus now because it is impacting the U.S. currently. But yesterday at 11 o'clock, we got Isaac. That's going to become possibly a hurricane. A Category 1 would be our 6th of the season. Right behind that, or really well to the south of that, I should say, in the main development region of the Atlantic, a 90% chance of this next tropical wave becoming Joyce. And then check this out. This is a recent development here. We've got the Central American gyre still kind of sitting and rotating here. That's what helped produce Helene. We've got another area of potential concern as we get into the middle to end of next week. Models are favoring development here, although right now odds are low, 20%. It's looking likely we may have to focus our attention down here next week. And if that does develop and get a name, that name would be Kirk. Here's a look at our list filled in so far. We're up to Isaac. Joyce and Kirk are up next, and then eventually Leslie, Milton, and Nadine, possibly if we need them, getting farther into the season. All right, that's the latest on Helene. If you are in the track of that storm right now and you stayed where you were, you need to hunker down. The time to evacuate has passed, unfortunately, and you're going to need to weather the storm. Stay safe no matter where you are in the southeast. If you have any questions, you can find me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, X, and TikTok. I'll join you again tomorrow with an update on the rest of the tropics and a look at Helene's remnants. But for now, we're only a couple hours away from landfall of major Hurricane Helene in the southeastern United States and the northern tip of Florida.